So good morning, afternoon, everyone. I'm kind of alone tonight. Jeff had an emergency he had to go attend to about 10 minutes before we got on here. So if you got a call from me recently, it's because I was going to beg you to come on and join me on here. But as Jeff said, the show must go on, so here I am. Peter Nodden, good evening. How are you? So tonight we're going to talk about several missing people in Maine. First, I wanted to kind of get your guys' take on 2 weeks ago when we had Stefanie Damron's case on. We spoke to her father, Christopher Dale Damron. What did everyone think of that interview? What was some of the takeaways there? I do have a neighbor, Doug, joining us too tonight. He'll be calling in, just kind of tell you what he thought about that interview. Hello, Nancy. Hello, Sharon. Peter, he says he's planning some hikes and some searches. Yeah. So if you guys don't know who Peter is, he's an aerial archaeologist. We had him on to talk about a missing person case involving airplanes, and he's actually found, I think he's told me, over 50 different crashed planes. We still want to join you, Peter. So Terry says regarding the interview 2 weeks ago with Christopher Damron, he referred to her in the past tense. So if you haven't seen that interview, please go back and look on YouTube. You can see that interview. And Patty Ackerson says there were a few things that didn't seem right. Angie says it's really interesting to hear Christopher's take on things with Stefanie's case. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Chris has done too many interviews. I know he's had some interviews that were kind of like snippets on different shows and whatnot. So it's good to have him on here for an hour. And I appreciate him coming on and telling his side of the story, because it's important to hear their side. I don't want to point the finger at anyone. Stefanie Damron led Stefanie. He was grateful Stefanie's father called in to participate. Absolutely. So Stefanie Damron went missing from New Sweden, Maine, back on September 24th, 2024. At the time, she's 13. She's since had a birthday, so she's actually 14 years old, 5 feet, 130 pounds. There's been no sightings of her that I'm aware of that they've found it. Nancy says, I think the dad knows more than he is saying, and he said that they've gotten the whole story from Star. Star is Stefanie's sister. Jody says, I didn't like how he wouldn't let anybody else speak, how he didn't trust Star, almost like he's going to set Star up for doing something. Potentially, I don't know. It could just be Chris's personality. You got to assume that he's going to be defensive with the way everyone seems to be coming at him and his family. So I don't necessarily blame him for that. Like, I kind of get where he's coming from too. If he's truly not involved, I could see myself, if I was a parent of a missing child and nothing to do with it, it must be extremely frustrating to have people just looking at you if there's another option out there. And Robin says quite a few things. She knows that he didn't trust his other daughter, right? And I thought it was weird too, Nancy, that no one knew what happened with the argument between Star and Stefanie. That's never come out anywhere. How would, after 6-8 months of a missing child, you don't know what the final argument was about? How do you not know? And he's saying that Star changed her story a few times, which could be, that's a child. Children do those things. But he wasn't able to tell us any story. Brooke, yeah, this is very interesting. Well, there's about a minute left in the podcast. He talks about basically where he would hide a body in a certain location. I know that was released to the state police. I'm not sure if they've had a chance to search that area or anything yet, but I found that odd too, the way he said it. And then he said, there, I've said it. And he said it. So I don't know if that's like a behavioral thing where you are guilty of something, you're trying to get off your chest, so then you say, there, I said it. Nancy says same thing, and the mention of place to hide the body. Yeah. And I apologize. I'm trying to keep up with some of these comments. It's hard by myself without my tag team partner. Oh, shoot. You know what? Doug won't be able to call in because that's Jeff's number on his computer. So hold on. So Doug's probably trying to call and that phone's ringing. So I apologize, Doug. So no one will be able to really call in tonight. I did just text Doug to call me on this phone, and I'll stick it up here by my microphone. And it was odd that he said no one could get to that place. I heard the wife in the background. She was saying something about her and the oldest son both searched that area, but they didn't go all the way back, she said. I apologize if the audio is not clear when Doug calls. That's the best I could do in such short notice here without my buddy Jeff here. So Debbie, this episode's kind of a mixture. So we're doing 10 to 15 minutes on a couple different cases each. And then like right now, specifically I did this because Doug had reached out and said he wanted to tell us his 2 cents here. So actually Doug's calling in now. Hello, Doug.
Yes, Travis.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
All right. So you had mentioned you wanted to talk to me about some of Christopher's comments 2 weeks ago on the podcast specifically. And Doug, you're a neighbor, right?
I am the neighbor here on West Road. I am the Doug that I refer to Christopher Damron as Dale. That's how I know him. But I am the neighbor, one of the neighbors that he complained about on your broadcast last time.
All right, hold on just a second. Can everyone hear him okay? All right, go ahead, Doug.
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, that when I met, and I'm going to refer to him as, because I'm going to refer to Chris, who is another person. When I first met him, when he came here in 2021, he had already purchased his land. And he had done that before we even knew there was land for sale. So there's absolutely no truth to the statement that I hate Dale because of some land that the farm did not get. That is not true. I don't hate Dale. I don't hate anyone. The fact of the matter is, I don't own any of the land, and I did not purchase any of the land that Dale is complaining about because that was purchased by an LLC. I just happened to be a friend of one of the people in the LLC, and I assisted them with the sale. So the property across the road from Dale was purchased in partly in 2018 and partly in 2019. And then a parcel across the road was purchased after Dale had purchased his parcel. So I have no issue, and the LLC has no issue whatsoever with Dale purchasing that property. It was for sale. He bought it. It's not a problem. So that is incorrect. The issue too is that I was spreading rumors about Dale. That is not correct either. The fact of the matter is, I am one of the people out here who have tried to keep down rumors. And every time we have found out that something is a rumor, we have tried to squash that. When they first came here, there was a rumor going around that they were squatters. And that made it all the way up pretty much to the top here in town. I knew that wasn't true. And I went to the town office and told the town clerk, those people are not squatters. They are purchasing that land. So I have not spread lies or rumors on Dale Damron. In fact, we have tried to keep those things down. My friend Art, that he complained about, did everything he could to help Dale. Dale would go to Art's, who's the neighbor on the other side, and ask if Art will help do something.
Oh, you're breaking up.
He do that, and Art always did it for him. So Art had no issue with Dale. Art's yard and tore his apple trees. Art went to the property and politely asked the girls, which were the two girls, Star and Stephanie, and Richard, who was the old gentleman they called Randolph, and politely asked them if somebody come and get the hog. And after that, Dale confronted Art because he had walked onto his property to do that. And so after that, he was mad at Art. So that's the problem here with someone disliking or hating somebody, if that's what you use. I think
Hey, Doug.
is not describing Art.
Can you repeat what you just said, because you kind of cut out?
Okay, let me move to another part of the house. So anyway, there's no hatred there. Here's the thing that we really take exception to, and this is community-wide. Dale had said on your broadcast, I can't remember which one of you it was that asked him, if when he came home from a job interview and learned that Stefanie was missing, did he go to his neighbors and tell them? He said that he did. He said, I think his words were within 30 minutes, he had gone up and down the road, and he called it the Creek Road, we call it the Lake Road, down to the 4 Points. And there's 12 houses, 12 occupied homes within that stretch of the West Road, not counting Dale's and the man that they call Uncle Andrew. He said yes, that he had gone to those houses, knocked on the door, and told them his daughter was missing. And then you ask, did your neighbors help you? And help you look? And he said, no, they wouldn't help me because of the rumors that Doug and Art had spread about me. I heard that. The next day, I went to all of those houses, and I knocked on the doors, and I asked my neighbors, did Dale Damron or any one of his associates ever come to your house on that evening, Monday evening, or any other time, and tell you that his daughter was missing? And every single person, this is 20 adults, every single person said he never came to my house and told me that his daughter was missing. And we are all in agreement, all 20 of us, that we will go on the record and state that that never happened. So we don't know where Dale Damron was on that afternoon and evening. That he said he was out notifying his neighbors that his Stefanie was missing, but we can say 100% certainty that he was not going up and down the West Road notifying his neighbors.
Yeah,
and
very,
we want to
very
make that clear to the public, because that is not the kind of community this is. Travis, every able-bodied man and woman on this road would have stopped whatever they were doing and gone and looked for Stefanie.
Right.
That's truth.
Right. Absolutely. So that's odd to me. If my child's missing and we think she walked down the road or walked into the woods, you're definitely going to go check with the neighbors. And then for him to say that he spoke to the neighbors and everything that night, you're telling me is a lie, and the other 20 people on the road never saw him, right?
That's correct. I went to it. It took me a couple of days to catch everybody at home. I went to every house and I said, listen, this state was made on locating the lost. Some of them had actually heard your broadcast. And I asked, did Dale, Lisa, or any of his associates ever come here and tell you that Stefanie was missing on the 23rd or any other time? And they all said no. And most of them told me how they came to know. And one or two of them said, well, actually, Doug, you told me. or I heard it from so-and-so. Some of them said they were not aware of it until the FBI informed them. And I asked each and every one of them, I said, this is a community issue. This is something where an entire section of this community of decent people have been slandered by saying that we are such terrible folks that we wouldn't even look for a missing girl. And I said, would you go on the record and state that that never happened? Every single person said, I will go on the record. It's not true. I will tell you this. We did not know that Stefanie was missing for quite some time.
Do you know how long that was?
I can tell you exactly how long that was, because it just so happens that things got memorialized in my texts with my neighbor, Chris. And what happened was I got a text on Monday afternoon. That was the 23rd. That was when we were told Stefanie went missing. That was shortly, just a few minutes after 4:30 p.m. My neighbor, Chris next door, his house is closer to the road, and he's got a big glass front, and he sees a lot too.
Right.
So he sent me this text and said, the troopers just went down the Damron's driveway. That was Tuesday afternoon. Forgive me. That was Tuesday afternoon, the 24th, not the 23rd. It was Tuesday afternoon, the 24th, shortly after 4:30. And he texted and said, I didn't call him. And I texted back to him, I didn't call him. So we had no idea why the troopers went down the Damron's driveway on Tuesday afternoon, the 24th, shortly after 4:30. We didn't think any more about it. On Wednesday afternoon, the 25th, sometime around 4:40 p.m., I received a text from Chris, my neighbor, who asked me, Doug, can you give me a ride down to the store, which is the convenience store? It's 3.25 miles down here at the end of Westmoreland Road and 161. And I said, well, I'm just finishing up dinner. I'll come get you in a minute. I finished dinner. I walked outside. I cranked my vehicle. I got another text that said, Doug, the troopers just went down the Damron's driveway again. And I'm like, well, that is very strange. So I drove out my driveway over to his house, which is a couple hundred yards away, and pulled into his driveway. He was standing in the driveway waiting on me. And he's looking south as he walks up to my car, south down the west road. And he says, well, this might be interesting. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, here comes the Damron's pickup truck. They were coming from the direction of the man they call Uncle Andrew, where they had been staying for more than a year. And the thought was, he later said, well, I didn't know if they knew that the troopers were down there. So we figured they would go on down. Well, when they got to where we were, it was only Lisa in the pickup truck. She was driving. And she pulled across the end of the driveway that I was sitting in. And my friend Chris already had his hand on the door to get in my car, and he said, I wonder what she wants. And the Damrons do not speak to me, not since June of 2021. And so, but they will speak to him, Chris, my neighbor.
Right.
So he said, I'll see what Lisa wants. So he walked over there. I'm just sitting there. I'm not paying any attention. The next thing I know, Lisa and Chris, my neighbor, are standing next to my door. And Chris says, she wants to ask you a question. And so and Lisa said to me, this is a quote, and this was in the presence of my neighbor, Chris, I would not ask you this, except my little girl is missing. And I said, which little girl? And she said, Stefanie. I said, if you have a child missing, you ask me anything you want.
Yeah.
And she said, I want to know if you have cameras down at the other property, because there is a house directly across the street from the Damron's driveway. It's the property that was purchased in 2019 by the LLC, and I just look out for that place, and they know I look out for it. I mow the grass and stuff. I just do that for my friend. It's not a paid job or anything like that. It's just something I do. And I told her, she said, I want to know if there's cameras on that property that watch our driveway.
Yep.
That was what she wanted. And I said, there are devices on that property that let me know when people are on it, but there are no cameras watching your driveway. Lisa said, thank you. Then she said, the troopers told us that they couldn't do anything about Stefanie for 24 hours. And I thought that was odd, and I did not believe that was correct anytime a juvenile goes missing. And so then she turned around, got in her truck, and left.
Hey, Doug.
Give or take a minute.
Yeah.
That was at 4:50 p.m. on Wednesday, September the 25th.
Right.
A full 48 hours.
So Chris is actually watching too, and he just put a comment in here. I'm the Chris, the neighbor. So Chris, if you can in the comments, can you confirm what Doug is saying? Like, you were there, so confirm what Doug just told us, please. Doug, I had someone to ask a question here. They said, what do you think happened to Stefanie?
I'm not going to speculate on what happened to Stefanie. I don't have enough information to do that. I'm not privy to what's taken place in the investigation. That's something that I don't have a right to know, so I don't know. So I can't say. I will say this much. Neither I nor anyone else believe that she walked out of here or that she walked off into the woods and got lost. I can tell you that it's been stated by Dale Damron that they're in the middle of nowhere. But the truth of the matter is that we're not in the middle of nowhere. There's two roads out here that basically form our part of the community, West Road and West Mainland Road. And those two roads make, for lack of a better term, sort of a poorly shaped oblong that's 4 miles from north to south. And in the lower section, the southern section, it's 1 mile between those two roads. And in the upper section, the last 2 miles going north, it's about a half a mile between those two roads. And so since Stefanie's home is inside that oblong, if she had walked off into the woods, she could have never been more than a half a mile from a road,
right,
east to west. And the entire area surrounded by these roads is approximately 2,000 acres. So the search area, we saw it when they were the state police, the wardens, FBI, everybody was out here for a long time, and there was an intensive searching done in this area. So do we think Stefanie walked off into the woods and got lost? No, I don't know anybody thinks that. And nor do I believe that, or anyone that believes that she just walked out of here. So,
yeah. I do have another question for you. Brooke is asking, can you describe their housing situation?
I saw the initial construction that was done up by the road, And I know that I don't know whether they carried it, how they transported it, but they transported it about, 335 yards back into the woods where it came to rest. I have never been to it, so I can't say. Okay. I have a friend, Art, who went to it, and he actually, when he was doing nice things to help them, he was allowed to come in and sit down, and he described it as, well, I think Dale said 200 square feet. It was described to me as approximately that size. It is not a tent. It is a wooden structure. It is not a tent. And it was described to me by Art, who was in it, as having what he described as 4 tunnels. In other words, if you had a wheel with 4 spokes sticking outside the perimeter of the wheel, that he described as about maybe 4 to 5 feet long and knee high. And he told me that that's what the children crawl up into to sleep. That's the only person that I have spoke to that has actually been to it and has been inside it.
I've got another question here for you too. Someone's asking, did you or any of the neighbors hear any vehicles going up and down the road around the time that Stefanie went missing?
We were asked that by law enforcement numerous times, and anything can pass by without you knowing it. But none of us were able to pinpoint to any vehicles at that time, which we're not even sure what time, because we initially heard that she supposedly went missing like 1:30 in the afternoon or something like that, and then the chime kind of like changed as to when that might have been. So we didn't have an exact time. And even some people have, cameras like out on their mailboxes and things like that. So there was quite a bit of time in there, I guess, that such a thing could have happened. Yep. But when we were asked, I'm told that nobody was able to identify a strange vehicle or anything out of the ordinary on that day.
All right. And then, do you know Patty? She's another neighbor, I guess. Patty Porter Ackerson.
Patty is my neighbor to the south.
Yeah. So she said that no one heard anything, and nor did cameras on both of our properties on this road pick up anyone riding around looking for her. So basically, she's on the same thing you're saying, that no one is looking for her.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. We, like I probably didn't state it clearly, and forgive me for that, but we had, and I mean, if I'm outside, I can hear them, when the Damrons, when they're out in the yard down there, I can hear the kids playing.
Yep.
And my neighbor Chris and my neighbor Art, they can too. What was puzzling to us is that from that time on Monday, when she was said to have gone missing, up until Chris and I were told by Lisa that she was missing on Wednesday evening, we never heard or saw anything that indicated to us that Stefanie was missing or that anyone was searching for her. It was just normal as far as we knew, other than the fact that the troopers did go down there on Tuesday afternoon and they did go down there on Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you want to add, Doug, before we let you go?
I want to say, I got this directly from law enforcement. I want to say, I'm not trying to be the spokesperson, but I want to say on behalf of my community that I was law enforcement, that they had 100% cooperation from all of the neighbors in this community in their search for Stefanie, which I was told, and I know because we participated in ourselves, that even included the FBI and the state police warrantless searches of our homes, our buildings, and our land.
Yeah.
We want to find Stefanie. We want to know what happened. This community is in turmoil over the tragedy that has taken place out here.
Yeah, and I mean, I've talked to you a couple different times, Doug, and I can tell you're a good man, and you obviously care about these kids, and you want to help find Stefanie, and I appreciate everything you're doing up there.
Well, the searches are going to resume. We've been told they're going to come back and they are going to search again. So we're praying. I'm still praying for a miracle. I'm praying for a good outcome. But I can assure you, there is some criticism of law enforcement and their efforts in this case. But I'm going to tell you, from those of us that were here, and I'm sitting 1,600 feet from the Damron's residence right now.
Right.
Okay? And so those of us that are here can tell you that law enforcement has been vigilant, and as far as we can tell, they have done everything possible thus far to find Stefanie. And I would include the FBI, the state police, and our warden service. These people care, and they want to find her.
Yeah.
So any criticism, in my opinion, and in the opinion of my neighbors, is unjust criticism.
Yep, I agree, and it's great to hear that they are taking it so seriously. I do have lots of people thanking you for joining us, Doug, and I thank you as well. Anthony says, very grateful for you, Doug. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. You're a good fella, and New Sweden is blessed to have you.
Well, thank you, and I'll encourage all of your listeners to follow the story and appreciate what you're doing. And if it hadn't been for you, we would not have been able to correct some of the misinformation that was given out about the people in this good people out.
Yeah. No, I can tell. I know that you're all good people up there. So thank you, Doug, so much for joining us.
Thank you, Travis, for allowing me the time to speak.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
Good night.
So yeah, so that was Doug, the neighbor, telling you guys that he was not made aware that she was missing for a while. So several days later. I'm trying to. Christy said, wow. Chris says, thank you, Doug. I agree with everything you have said. Yeah, and so Chris is another neighbor. He knows exactly what happened that night or the days following. So yeah, so it's very insightful. Oops, let me take that off. So you should have someone else here to help keep track of stuff. So yeah, so if you guys can, please think about Jeff. Hopefully everything is okay with him. He did have to go to the emergency room. That's why he wasn't on podcast night. So I apologize. You had to deal with just me. But I'm grateful that Doug did join us. We're going to go over a couple other cases here too. Let's see. So that's a case we covered back January 31st, 2024. Attiin Shaw. So she went missing. I don't think we have an exact date of when she went missing. I know on the poster here it says September 8th, but I think we decided it was like early September 2021. Basically from Washburn, Maine. So basically, she is married to a gentleman, Mike Shaw. They get married overseas. She comes back here to Maine with him, where they live for a couple years. Family can't reach her, so family decides to convince Mike to contact the police because Mike's story is that she went away on a cruise ship during COVID without a passport, no credit cards used since their disappearance. Oh, here, I'll go back to Stacy. Thanks so much, Travis. I know this has been hard on the community. I'm very grateful for you guys. Yeah, I'm grateful that Doug was able to join us and clear up some things. And then Brenda Foote says, wasn't it during August Fest? Yeah, so there was a festival that they have up there in that area, in the Washburn area, that she was last seen. And then she kind of just disappeared. I'm trying to keep up with this stuff. Apologize. Brenda says, was that the husband's story, or was that what the cop said? Brenda, good question. That is supposedly what the husband, Mike Shaw, told Chandler Cole, who was the one who took the report, who was also involved with your son's disappearance and ultimately your son's death. And I'm not saying that Chandler was involved, but he did forge documents. He lied about where he dropped your son off at. I'm so sorry for everything that you and your family have gone through. Christy says there have been 2 searches by law enforcement at Attiin Shaw in the recent year or so, and nothing since. Yeah, actually, so we had done that podcast on the 31st, I think I said, of January, and then within 10 days they were there taking out evidence bags. That was kind of a cool moment for us to think that maybe we did make a difference. Maybe we kind of applied some pressure on them to look into her case. Like, this beautiful young lady is still missing. Somebody's walking around that knows what happened to her and is not speaking. Police have said that there's no evidence that she's anywhere else. Her social security number has been used. There's no record of her joining any cruise ship, nothing like that. And he had told friends that she had gone back to see her family, but then when her family looked for her, oh, well, she went away on this cruise ship during COVID because there was lots of need for help on a cruise ship during that time. Brenda says, thank you is still painful, but her family's suffering for years because Cole took no action and closed the case. Absolutely, Brenda. And Tiffany's asking, wasn't there a young man who also went missing in the same area as Attiin? And this, Brenda's son, Eric, had gone missing and was later found. Christy, absolutely. I'd like to think evidence bags means something. Yeah, I mean, they left the home with something, right? Sorry, I'm trying to read these. I believe she was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe she's from Indonesia. That's where they had met. He was a teacher over there. They had met and wed, and then came back here to Maine. So Avery Bruce, is there any way I can restart this? I joined late. So once we finish the live, then you'll be able to go back and watch the whole thing. Brenda says, is it possible that she got picked up or given a ride home by someone and that went wrong on the day of the August Fest? Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. Lisa tight-lipped. I basically wanted to talk about her case because there is no action, I should say, or there's been no motion on her case. So I'm just trying to get people watching this to think about where she might be. If anyone remembers anything from that time frame around August Fest, did you see Attiin at August Fest? Are you from that area? Did she ever say anything to you the days before she went missing? And my outdoor life says too many coincidences between this and Foote, in my opinion. Come on. Well, same person took both reports, right? Pineland Homestead, going back to the previous case, I'm further down the end of West Road. I never saw the Damrons looking either. Team Stephanie says, Mike was also working for the garbage company shortly after Attiin went missing, but apparently got done before he reported it. Yeah, that's always bothered me. That's absolutely true. He was working at the local garbage company, not far from their home, honestly. when she went missing, and then after he reported it, he had left the company. Kimmy Susu Terrio says, I pray I'll get closure. My aunt Virginia has been missing since 1993 from up here. She was from Easton. Is that Virginia Pictou noise, Kimmy? Tiffany says Eric Foot was last seen by a police officer who claimed he brought him to a hospital, correct? Wasn't the cop in trouble of changing police report, saying he brought him to a store instead? So police officer was the last one to see Eric alive. Yeah, that's Officer Chandler Cole. He was convicted of, I don't want to say the wrong charge, but basically forging documents. He had changed documentation really to cover up, I think, his incompetency. It was the same cop in both cases, yes. Nancy, there's not a lot of details on Attiin's case. I believe the husband's saying that she had left from the house. So yeah, so she made it back from August Fest and then left on a cruise. Yeah, Stacy said he was charged with tampering with evidence, right? Kimmy says yes. Oh yeah, about her aunt Virginia. We'd love to talk about her case sometime. I was talking to this Francis, her brother. Talked to him before, but not on the podcast. So the Attiin's case, if you have any information, please contact the Maine State Police at 207-532-5400. Sad case, and I know she's got children, and hopefully they're doing well. Good point, Terry. You need a passport in order to go on a cruise. There's cameras all over those ships. Exactly. Brenda wants to remind everyone that Chandler served no jail time, and it was a small fine, right, Brenda? It was like, I don't know, $350 fine or some ridiculously low thing. It was also said that Attiin was working at a pizza place in Bangor. She had worked there for a week or two and then wasn't able to provide the right information to be able to keep her employment. And it's also said that she had an apartment in Orono or something. And that, I mean, it's only people theorizing, but a lot of people believe that she was getting ready to leave her husband, Michael. Okay, Kim, yes, so Francis is your dad, so get your dad on here and come talk to us. You can join him if you'd like. Brennan's asking, why did Chandler say he closed this case? From what I understand, he believed Michael's story. I think it's the easy way out to say, okay, so she went on a cruise ship and all's well. Check. Tanya says, I'm worried about Virginia's case. Could be the work of the Connecticut Valley serial killer. A few of his victims are missing. This bothered me, Brenda. And to my knowledge, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone that lives up in that area, but I didn't really hear anything about this. Brenda's asking, why didn't he announce it to the public so they could search for her? I think it was kept all quiet for 2 years until, I feel like, after Kara started looking into it, working with the family, but she's doing a great job. Got a hold of us. We talked about it on the podcast, and all of a sudden people started realizing, oh my God, there's a missing mom from Washburn. Karen says, I don't understand how so many people disappear without trace. And I think you see that a lot up here in a state like Maine, where there's so much forest that it could be put hidden anywhere. Tiffany says it's strange to me that her husband was in trouble just for the fact he was the last one to see her alive. He would have been the lead suspect, right? Nona says, unfortunately, that's the state for you. Stacy, I'm not going to post that. Jody says, I can't believe how bad some of our cops are lately. I don't understand if they take this job to serve and protect, and then they do nothing for something totally opposite. It's disturbing and it's really sad for the victims and their families. It's almost like, not to get political, but it's almost the same way with our senators and congressmen. Like, they take this job, they're going to change the world, and then they realize, hey, I get a payout. Yeah, I'd like to know that, Tiffany. Was Chandler Cole and Mike Shaw friends? Like, do they have the same acquaintances? That's an excellent point. And I bet someone up there in that area knows if they're familiar with each other. There's not a lot of people up there. So if, at minimum, they had to have known about each other. I agree, Brenda. It's so sad that one person, Chandler, could have helped her and her family and helped my son. Yep. It's awful that he didn't do his job and take care of your son that night. And Holly said the same thing. I didn't hear anything about team missing until January 2023. This is the Doug that was on the phone with me earlier. He said, I forgot to say that Art never called CPS a single time. That was one of Mr. Damron's claims, that neighbors were constantly calling CPS on them. Karen says, I was raised here and this never happened. Then to have a friend lose her son, the cop get a slap on the hand was so wrong for sure. Yeah. And I like how they had the investigating officer, or not officer, investigating agency. They had hired a private detective out of Florida, which used to be the head of the sheriff's department up there in the area. So he's got his own demons and skeletons to hide. So that was a farce to say that was a investigation on that. Curious if anyone took any videos at the festival that Attiin apparently went to. If so, it could be reviewed to see if she was there, possibly. Anthony says, I didn't know about Attiin's case until Kara told me in 2024, November 2024. Yeah. Brenda, Tiffany says, I'm so sorry for your son's loss. The officer was the last one to see your son alive and changed his story. I'm praying you receive justice one day. So that's her husband, Michael, and her. Jody says civil suit. Can't say I wouldn't blame Brenda for doing that. All right, so we're going to move on to another case. This one's weird. Has anyone heard of this case, or have you not heard of this case? Douglas Chapman, who's 3 years old, disappeared June 2nd, 1971 from Alfred, Maine. The story is that he was playing in a sandbox out in front of his house. His mom was doing the dishes. She's kind of, as all parents do, kind of keep an eye on the kids, peeking out the window, checking on them. And he was there, and the next minute he's gone. She starts hollering to him, no answer. She gets the police involved. Police have a dog canine unit that followed Douglas through the woods and then up to another road behind their house, where his scent stops immediately. So the theory is that he was picked up, abducted by a stranger. So while I was looking at this case, oh, Kimmy, thank you. Yeah, I'll reach out to him and we'll dedicate a whole show on Virginia's case. So while I was looking at this case, I did find something that's kind of interesting. Bowdoin College, I don't know if it was a student doing this interview or what. They interviewed this gentleman who claimed to be Douglas Chapman. Share this with you guys.
Led me through this mess to find and ask my mom about. But during this time, at a young age, which I later found out was 3.5, I was taken from my home and sexually exploited by religious people, Catholic priests. Then I was shipped out of the state of Maine to a bike club house in Hartford, Connecticut. The NSKK clubhouse. I was brought down there by Cheryl Stone, and Zebo was this biker's name. That was her boyfriend at the time. And left there, and then I was sexually exploited again for the winter. Upon that, I was brought back to the state of Maine and given to my new family, where I learned my new name, my new birth date, and brought into school, which I had a terrible time with. After being raised in this family for much of my childhood into my teens, and full of neglect, full of really dysfunctional action, I got away when I was 17, and I went fishing on a fishing boat, commercial fishing boat. And finally, I wasn't being neglected. I was being treated as a human being because I was a great worker. I was respected for the first time in my life. So I stayed with the fishing, and plus there was safety. I was away from land where all this bad stuff had happened. Into my fishing career later on, I found out from a gentleman that was a fellow biker, I guess, with my handlers, with Cheryl Stone. And he informed me that I wasn't really her kid, that she had killed her child, and they had taken me from another family, which I had no idea which family, neither did he, but because they had taken so many kids during the 70s is what it was. So I took matters into my own hands, and when I got home, I asked the woman that raised me to do a DNA test with me, and she wouldn't. She said she had rights to. She sold the family property and moved out of the state. I then went to the Maine State Troopers Association. They told me that they didn't help out in situations like this. Even though I was reporting that I was a stolen child, they said that I was on my own and I had to investigate this myself. At that point in time, I was
That's crazy to
an
me.
alcoholic and a drug addict. And I had no inclination of how big this was and what I had been suppressing, and the act of just trying to keep my sanity, the denial, you know.
Sorry about that. My screen froze over here. So basically, I'm actually going to rewind it because I didn't play the very beginning, and I couldn't meant to do that so you guys could see who the interviewer is and all that stuff. A crazy, crazy story. He's claiming, and I'll put the link in the comments section here in just a minute, but he's claiming that he's Douglas Chapman. He was taken out of state. And the whole video is about an hour long, so I definitely think it's worth your time to watch. It's sad whatever has happened to this gentleman if he's not Douglas Chapman. I know he's been in touch with Douglas's parents. and they have done DNA testing. However, he's saying because the state police did the DNA testing, they had him meet him at Target in the back parking lot and did a DNA test with no gloves or anything. So he's basically saying that the cops know that he's Douglas Chapman and that they're just trying to cover up. But to me, I think that I haven't found any evidence that says that they've proved that he's not. And if you go on like forums talking about missing people and look up Douglas Chapman's name, this guy pops up on there with his phone number. Like he puts his phone number out there. So if anyone wants to call him and talk to him about the case, like they're welcome to call and talk to him. And actually, had I had time today at work, I was going to try to reach out to him, see if he would come on here and talk to us, but I was not able to do that. I mean, if I could make a lot of money doing this, it's going to be my full-time job. I could spend more time doing this, but unfortunately, I got bills to pay. Let's see if I can get that back to the beginning.
My name is Erica Buram, and the date is August 9th, 2023. We are here at the Jackson Memorial Library in St. George, Maine, and I'm here with
Douglas Chapman.
Douglas Chapman. The file number is 2023-08-0001. And Douglas, I need to ask you if you've read, understood, and signed the informed consent document.
Yes, I have.
Okay, and I need to make sure you know I'm a mandated reporter, which means that if a child or elder is in need of protection, or if there's imminent risk of serious bodily harm or death to you and others, that this information may not be protected as confidential.
I understand completely.
Okay. So you can certainly start wherever you would like. If you would like me to ask you kind of the questions we have for everybody that are kind of suggested questions, I can. Otherwise, you're sort of free to start where it's important to start for you.
Okay. Well, I was raised in Alfred, Maine, and a pretty good home. Have some good memories of gardens, and actually, I used to steal my neighbor's green peppers. That's how one of my memories that led me through this mess to find and ask my mom about. But during this time, at a young age, which I later found out was 3.5, I was taken from my home and sexually exploited.
Sorry, I unmuted my mic. So that's kind of where we had started off earlier. But if you listen to the whole thing, like I said, it's about an hour long. He says, first someone thinks that he looks like Kurt Newton, who also disappeared in the 70s, blonde-haired kid. When they looked at his childhood photo, they thought he looked like Kurt Newton. And then realized that he was Doug Chapman. So I'm not sure, like I'm not saying that he is or that he maybe has some mental health issues and believes he is. But either way, I thought that interview was interesting. So let me get this. Why can I get this? Let me put that in the chat here. So once we get done here, if you guys are bored, want to take a look at that, just put the link in the comment section there. And then I had one final one to talk about tonight. We're at our 1 hour mark. This is a case that I didn't know anything about. I hadn't, I've seen her face on the missing persons pages and stuff. But I never ever looked into it. It's really bizarre because Marilyn lived in Eastport, Maine. The last time her family saw her was in 2002. It wasn't until 2004 that they were trying to look for her, and her husband says, well, she moved out of state, started a new life, and she doesn't want anything to do with anyone. Which I gotta say, to me, that sounds like he's involved, right? Like that doesn't happen. But I remember 2 or 3 years ago, I had this lady reach out to us from Rockland area that said her sister had been missing for 15 years, didn't know where she was. The husband's story was that she changed the name, moved out of state, left her 18-year-old child. And I thought that sounded far-fetched. So when we started looking into it, I was able to track the woman down, and she was living in North Dakota. She had changed her name. Police reached out to her, and she just didn't. She was still alive and well, just didn't want to do anything, have anything to do with her family, which is absolutely nuts to me. Like that's the first time that's happened where we were able to help locate somebody and they're still alive, but they wanted their freedom. However, in Marilyn's case, police are saying there's no signs that she's living elsewhere. There's no use of her social security number, no use of her cards. Stacey, after 2 years. So, like I said, I do this stuff literally daily. I'm looking through true crime stuff, especially in the state of Maine, like missing people and unsolved murders and such. And this case, I knew zero about. So, if you guys can, take a look at her face. If you're from the Eastport area, if you recognize her, please share her story. You can go online and find really, I think there's one poster and then these 2 pictures. But share them if you would. Oh, I will do one more just because this one means a lot to me as well. Graham Locker. We had his mother, Tammy, on with us about 1.5 years ago, I think. 37 years old, ran into the woods while on a supervised walk with a staff member at the Dorothy Dix Psychiatric Center in Bangor, Maine on June 6, 2022. So typically, Graham would have one walk a day. This day was an extremely warm, beautiful day, and Graham had asked if he could go for another walk. So the staff member said, "Yeah, we can go for another walk." She took him out for a walk where he decided to take off and run from her. Graham's been diagnosed with schizophrenia and autism and had been in the facility since April 2022. Security footage caught him in the surrounding area a few hours after he went missing, but there have been no confirmed sightings since. He's 37 years old at the time, 5'11", 190 pounds. Like I said, his mom, Tammy, is constantly fighting for him, trying to get the word out for Graham. We're still getting sightings all the time. Unfortunately, a lot of them they found weren't him, but it's good. Like I feel like his case is one that everyone's paying attention to. Everyone's looking for him. I myself included. Every time I walk by, a homeless person walking down the street, I always take a double take and make sure that's not Graham. And I do that also just because of all the cases I do follow. Maybe it's somebody else we could help find. I know they found his orange hat like within 2 weeks after he went missing. That orange hunting hat that he always wore. Oh, Linda says, "Thank you for all you do, Travis." Linda is the wife of, oh my gosh, Luja Belanger, who disappeared back in 75, I think, Linda. Brooks says, "Crazy after 20 years, this case isn't known and that there's so little updates." Absolutely. Like, I think every missing person deserves to have a voice. These police departments need to spend more time getting their pictures out, talking about these cases. I know state police is pretty good about on the year anniversary, at least getting them out, but man, oh man, I feel like it takes a second to share a post, and that includes you guys as well. Every time you see a missing person or if there's a case that calls on you, I know a lot of the people that follow our page, they're looking into individual cases. Or there's 2 or 3 cases that they're really caught up on, and they share the stories out and get the posters shared. And I think that's amazing that you guys are all doing that. Tiffany, I did hear about that, and I know Tammy had put out a post about this. She said there was a man recently in the last 2 days arrested who had made Facebook posts implying he had killed Graham Locker. Did you hear about that? Yeah. I don't know how believable he is. Stacy, thank you. I'm so thankful for you, Travis Hartford. You guys do a great thing with this. I'm proud to call you a friend. God bless you all. Thank you, Stacy, so much. And Brenda, yes, Graham's mother has fought so hard to find him. I pray for closure. Let's see. Yeah, Tiffany says Graham's mother's aware about the post about her son, and the man was arrested. So, good. Probably got what he deserved. I can't remember. Is that the last? Yeah, that's the last slide for him. But yeah, so if you do know anything, please reach out to the Maine State Police. Let me get that number back up because I get forgetful. Contact the Maine State Police at 207-532-5400. So unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about, we're at like an hour and 8 minutes. I don't mind staying on for a few more minutes if you guys have another case you want to talk about. Lynn, that name sounds really familiar, and I apologize. I don't recognize why or who that is, so I'll have to look that up after. She says, Denise Lozano, Hamilton's Light Parade is always on my birthday, which is December 7th, if that helps. Brooke says, every loved one of missing person deserves some type of closure. Absolutely. And Angela, that's awesome. Or Angie, I saw a big poster for Graham near the Portland Jetport a couple days ago on a telephone pole. Glad to see his face is still out there. Absolutely. You guys are digging deep here. Wanda Mitchell. Oh, jeez. Let me look. Yeah, how come I don't know the story? Holy cow. All right, so I guess I'll have to look that one up. Thank you, Holly, for that suggestion. Brooke says Ayla Reynolds and Harmony Montgomery. Yeah, we've shared their stories a couple different times. We had Harmony's mom on, and we had Ayla's mom on to cover those stories with us. And I know most of you guys already hear this. It's like a broken record, but Ayla is truly the reason why I started this podcast. I had a dream about her, and soon after her went missing, and she's the reason why I started doing this. So Stacey says Ayla in Virginia. Nancy, I know, Nancy, you know a lot about the Jeremy Alex case. Maybe you can come on sometime and talk to us about Jeremy's case. We have covered his case a couple different times. Very strange story. I believe Rockport, right, Nancy? He went missing. Last seen kind of acting a little erratic. And then somehow his wallet is found washed up on the shore. Wanda Mitchell was found in Poland, Maine. She went missing many years ago, and her killer was never found. Yeah, actually, that looks like a really good one to get into, Holly. That's my next task. Great question, Brenda. How actively are police looking for these people? All the posters of pounding the pavement is done by the family. It literally seems that way, unless it's almost like they're waiting for something, evidence or something, a tip to fall out of the sky to them. on some of these cases. Not all of them, but some. Holly, maybe you can join us talk about Wanda's case, especially if you're a friend of hers. Peter says the Alex case needs a thorough ground search of areas not so covered yet. Yep. Notice is Kimberly Moreau. She's one of the cases that I've always thought about through the years. I mean, I think I was 12 or 13 when she went missing. I grew up in Leeds, which isn't too far from Jay. And I remember riding my bike and seeing her poster, that her father Dick would put on the telephone poles, and he stuck one way out in Leeds, which is, half hour away from Jay, Maine. And that case always got to me. I'm fortunate to say that I'm friends with her father Richard and her sisters, and the whole family. I pray that we find her one of these days. This is my first time tuning in to see a compilation of cases featured on your show all together. What a great way to keep the names out there and learn about cases we may be less familiar with. Thank you. Yeah, honestly, it was kind of thrown together. I didn't have anyone for this coming week, and I know Doug had reached out and asked if he could kind of clear the air with his with Chris Damron's statements against him and the other neighbors. So I thought this would be a good way because I wasn't sure if that would fill up an hour or not. So I said, well, I'll plug in multiple cases. So maybe that's something we can do more in the future. Let's see. You guys are writing a lot of stuff. Trying to keep up with it all. Oh yeah, thank you, Team Stephanie. Thank you, Travis. Awesome job by yourself. We hope Jeff is feeling better soon. Absolutely. I'm sure he's sitting in the emergency room listening to the podcast as we speak. Yep. Tiffany, absolutely. I'm shocked nobody was arrested in Ayla's case. They found evidence that she likely was dead, yet nobody from that house was ever arrested. It's very disturbing. Yeah. Yeah. All the blood evidence in the basement, this on his shoes, in the car seat, in the belt buckle in the car, towel that was thrown in a plastic tote in the basement where you could tell that it had been cleaning up blood. Nancy had shared that with me before. I've been trying for years to get them to search that bog on Bog Road. Maybe this summer we can do it. Get a bunch of us here together to go in that bog. If you have canoes or kayaks or whatever. Brenda says they just waited for Eric to show up in the spring. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Opposite end of the state, we saw a poster for Graham Locker all the way in Madawaska, Maine. Excellent coverage. Yes. Kudos to Tammy. She's a fighter for sure. I wonder if they checked the same area Graham took off from. I know his mom has reached so many places, but have they ever recently went back to where he left from? Is it in the open? Is there water? So it's a good sized area where that place is. And his hat was found not far from the building, and he was seen on video for a couple days after on different surveillance cameras. Someone had thought that maybe he had fallen into the river that runs through Bangor there. But his mom was adamant that he wouldn't go near water. He did not like water. So she really does not believe he would have gone towards the river. Brooke says David Mitchell. Brooke, did you watch our podcast we did with David's mom? It's actually our most viewed podcast. I think we had 43,000 views on Facebook on the David Mitchell case. The gentleman from Canada who went missing, he was last seen at his boss's house. And then all of a sudden comes up missing. Well, thank you, Aaron. She said this was a great episode. All right. Let's see if I can get through these and be done here. Thanks for all you do. Travis and Jeff, you guys are awesome. Hope Jeff is okay. I'm sure he will be. He's a tough old coot. Nona says, I follow so many missing person cases. I've been following Layla Santinello's case so hard since hearing about it on TikTok. Did you watch our coverage of that case, Nona? We spoke to her mom and helped me. I think was it Tennessee she was from? Brenda says, at the end of the day, the person committing the crime has the most protection under the law. No justice sometimes for people like my son. Absolutely. 100% agree. Ayla's case reminds me of John Bonet. Yeah, that's true, Brooke. Someone had asked Brenda, if you don't mind me sharing, what do you think happened to Eric? Brenda says, I wish I knew. I suffer all the time from not knowing what happened to him. We will never know. His cause of death was undetermined, and he had a perfectly healthy autopsy. So, right. So had he actually fallen into the river, it would have been drowning if that's what happened. And that would have been something they could tell. Brenda, our hearts all go out to you. She says it's possible to live with. This alters your life for everyone that goes through this. Yeah, I can't imagine. All right. Well, I'm going to let you guys all go. I appreciate everyone watching. Thank you so much. Everyone stay safe. Take care of each other. Please keep sharing the missing and unsolved posters you see. Following shows like this, following other shows, get the word out for us. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
The search for 5-year-old Taylor Williams led investigators to Alabama this week.
So we have some breaking news from Florida. An arrest has been made in connection.
After years of agony, a glimmer of hope for the family.
Investigators spent hours searching through this house off Pennsylvania Avenue.
What could be a major development in the search for missing Alabama teenager.
Tonight, a stunning twist in the search for Taylor.
Somebody out there knows something.
They want to lay him to rest their way, not by somebody else's way.